Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode here on Swish City. I'm your host, Bruce Velez, and in today's episode, we're doing another one of our offseason breakdowns and season previews, diving into each NBA team before the 2025 2026 NBA season. In today's episode, I have a special guest, my guy over on YouTube, NikNBA, to help me out and break down this Boston Celtics team. Nick, how are you doing today, my guy?
Great, bro. Great. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk Celtics basketball. We've done this in the past, even on Switch City before, and I'm excited to do this once again and kind of get your thoughts with being, the analyst, knowing so much with the Celtics, covering them on YouTube, now working for Celtics blog as well as a contributor. I'd love to get your takes on this busy offseason that the Celtics have had because it's clearly been a complete 180 whirlwind of a direction from last year with them pushing for the title. Now with Jason Tatum being injured and having to reset their roster, a lot of changes came through. So we're going to break down and dive into all of that in today's episode, Nick. And let's get into it right away. As like I mentioned, the Celtics had a very busy off season here, and for the Boston Celtics, they made a lot of additions, also lost a lot of people, even made an addition just today that we'll have to get into. So let's dive in and let's discuss that. They made four signings this offseason, mostly veteran minimum contracts and one two-way contract as the Celtics have been strapped with salary cap. But they brought in Chris Boucher, they brought in Luka Garza, Josh Minot, and then most recently just signed Ron Harper Jr. to a two-way contract. He was obviously with the Celtics and Pistons for a little bit last year. Minot and Garza with the Timberwolves, and Chris Boucher with the Raptors. So, Nick, with these four players, can you kind of give us a little bit insight of what they could bring for the Boston Celtics this season?
Yeah, man. For sure. Chris Boucher is a very good, not very good, but he's a good veteran to have. He's of course spent um the majority of his season, his career with the Toronto Raptors, just came to the Celtics. I like the contract that we got for Chris Boucher. I believe it was like 3 million. It's only a 1 year deal. He is an older guy, but I've always liked Chris, and I thought that he was a guy that we could use for the teams when we were actually like going for championships. It was kind of weird when we signed them, and I was like, okay, maybe they are really trying to go for at least a cool playoff push. But Boucher, the last season was one, I believe, his second best season of his career. He averaged 10 points, about 4 rebounds, but he shot 36% from three. Boucher's like career average in threes is like 34%. But there are 2 years where he shot over 3 point attempts per game, and in those 2 seasons, he shot 36%, which was last year, and 38%, which was 2020. So with the Celtics, we're gonna shoot more threes than Toronto. So if he can get above like 3 point attempts per game, I think he could shoot like at least like 35 to 38%. So energetic, great offensive rebounder. Somebody that's freakishly athletic with his long arms. He's probably gonna be playing the four for us. He has said himself that he doesn't think he's best fit as a five, which I would agree with. He's slim, so maybe having him out on the perimeter or being like a help guy to help protect the rim would be best for him. Luka Garza, we signed him to a 2 year, $5.5 million deal. A guy that has never really gotten a fair shot. With the Timberwolves playing behind, Rudy Gobert, Nas Reed, was a phenom in college. But come here, he has an opportunity. He is a great screen setter. Is a guy that possesses great energy. His shortcomings really happen on the defensive side. I just don't think he's good enough laterally to like hang, but good offensive rebounder. He's a big body. He has shooting potential. The His shooting numbers over the past couple years won't show that. I think he's a better shooter than his numbers show, especially like going back to his college days. He was 1 for 4 from three in the preseason. But yeah, man, I was a little puzzled when they signed Garza. I'm more optimistic with his play in the preseason. So that's that. Josh Mana, who was my most intriguing signing, 6'8", 22 years old out of Memphis. Got drafted by the Timberwolves, of course. They kind of let him go, and the Celtics signed him to a 2 year deal. And he's probably been the most surprising guy. Not, I won't say surprised in the sense that like this stuff that he's doing, but I didn't think he would actually put it together. He will put it together this quickly. Is a super athlete. He had some trouble with fouling early on in his career. Even though he just like Garza hasn't really gotten a fair share of chance. You know what I'm saying? Hasn't played a lot of minutes, but you could see like in his time with the Timberwolves in his little garbage time, and then sometimes he would get some stints. I remember there was a game with the Clippers where like he's a really disruptive defender. I mean, like stop percentage, steals, blocks, everything. Like I believe he was number one in block percentage for like small forwards last season. Again, he's not playing a ton, but number one in something when he's actually playing a little bit is something. So that was per 100 possessions too. So he's just a disruptor, man. And like on the offensive glass, he used that same athleticism to fly in. Last game he had 2 blocks, I believe, and hopefully in like help where he's like coming off of the guy that he's checking to help in the paint. So I really like Josh Mana. He's also shown the ability to like drive, which is something that I didn't think would translate this fast. Or I honestly I didn't really think he had that. I saw like some like straight line drives when he was with the Timberwolves, but he's really been showing like the crossover from half court, getting to the rim. Like he can really attack closeouts. Now the swing skill, of course, is his shooting. Um, he has hit some. I believe I like that corner three. He shot a 35% from the corner last season. So if he can continue to shoot from the corner, I think that'll be straight. He tends to take some like really ill-advised ones in the preseason, like some ones he'll like take quick with somebody right on top of him. Don't shoot those. Take the open ones, which I think he can hit. So if he's able to do that, I think he'll be fine. Ron Harper Jr., guy that we just signed to a 2-way. The Celtics, he has spent some time with the Celtics in previous years. Well, last year, and we I like Ron Harper Jr. and I kind of got the feel that they liked him because in the preseason, like he was with it was him, like Amari, then it'll be RJ Lewis, like he would be with that group. But there was like 2 games where he came in like earlier than them. So I was like, okay, they must think that he can play with us, you know what I'm saying? So when we cut RJ Lewis Jr., which we'll get into, I was like, okay, they'll probably give this spot to Ron Harper Jr. So he can shoot. He has nice size. He's like 6'6". He can handle. He's like a combo guard. And yeah.
I would agree with you, Nick. I mean, Chris Boucher, I think, is going to be one of the better signings for the Celtics team as a value backup big, especially with how weak the front court does look on paper. You add Luka Garza, who has been slotted behind some other big men, and Karl Anthony Towns, Naz Reid, Rudy Gobert in the past, but has looked a little bit bright with his screening and offensive ability within the Celtics rotation, and I think will be utilized his best on that. Josh Minot, I think you hit it right out of the park, is the player to be the most intrigued by, not only from his great preseason, but for the ability that the Celtics do need that scrappy defensive wing to really fill into this bench rotation. They've been trying to get it with Jordan Walsh. I'm excited to see this competition between him and Josh Minot go into the season. And then lastly, Ron Harper Jr., like you mentioned, recently just picked up by the Celtics just today, but ultimately had played with the Celtics in the past. I believe was on the main Celtics last season before he got signed to a 2-way by the Detroit Pistons. So this is a nice little reunion story for him where the Celtics have already seen his tape before, already believed in it, but then, like you just said, gave him that confidence to run within some of these units and teams in the preseason to really buy in and get that last 2-way contract. So next, let's dive in and let's see who the Celtics traded for. They traded for a lot of players, and 2 of these players that they traded for are not on the roster as we speak, Nick, as Anthony Simons was brought in for the Drew Holiday trade with the Blazers. Georges Niang was a part of the 3-team deal that was part of the Kristaps Porzingis trade. They also technically drafted Amari Williams and Max Shoga due to the fact are traded for them due to the fact that they were traded on draft night with the pick for Noah Penda. And then lastly, they brought in Reggie Lewis Jr. or RJ Lewis Jr., who was obviously on a 2-way deal before he recently just got waived. They traded for him to shed salary with using Georges Niang's contract. Now, we can get a little bit into, RJ Lewis and Georges Niang if you want to touch on them a little bit, but mainly, Nick, here, dive into Anthony Simons for me, Amari Williams, Max Shulga for these trades.
Yeah, man, Anthony Simons. I was surprised that we were able to get Anthony Simons. Not like he's some like super great guy, but it's like the trades that we done. If you think about the trades that we did, the Chris Apps trade, we didn't really get much for him, and actually everything in that trade is now gone. Like George's Niang was part of that trade. Then we turned that into RJ Lewis Jr. Now he's gone. So getting like Drew, we lost a couple of guys in a free agency for absolutely nothing. And then yeah, so I like that we got Anthony Simons. He's a guy that's young, and it just gives the Celtics flexibility with that cap space. He's an expiring contract. If he does well, he shows us that he can uphold our standard on the defensive side of the ball. We can extend him for if it's a good price for us. If he's playing if he's playing really good like towards the trade deadline and the Celtics think that they can flip him, then we'll be able to do that. If it just goes horribly, we can't trade him. He's not the guy that we think can fit. We can just let him walk. So I think the Celtics did a good job there, at least getting somebody that's young, but like the player, this is in like this is a really, really good offensive guy. Like he's averaged 20 points and 5 assists multiple times in this league, which scoring consistently is the hardest thing to do in this league. And he's a guy that has done it as basically a top option. Of course, the team isn't great, but he's a guy that's shown that he can hit tough shots while he's at the top of the scout of the other team's scouting report. So he's a proven scorer, proven shooter, off the catch, off the dribble, anything you want him to do shooting wise, he can do it. And I think with the Celtics, I think he'll be best like with off ball stuff, right? We saw in both of the Toronto games this preseason that he kind of struggles with pressure. Like Jamal Shed from the Raptors is a dog, so like him coming to court was kind of hard. He had a couple turnovers in the last game too. Even though I think the second one, Tillman should have came to the ball, but like he's just been struggling with pressure all preseason. But in the Cleveland game, he was 6 for 9 from three, and like 5 of those were him on catch and shoot, and they had him bring the ball up less. So I think until he like gets that figured out, I think him being used off the ball would be a great thing for the Celtics. So defensively, of course, is where we need to iron some things out. He came to the Celtics and they were like, and I think Noah asked him like, uh, what like defensive drills have you been uh working on? And he said like stuff about like passing lanes, like defensive playmaking, and he was like, I've never done that any of those drills before. I'm like, the what? You what? Even in the NBA, like, but it's like Port like he could do anything, not saying anything, but he can do what he wanted defensively because they needed him to score the ball. Now, the Celtics will like him to score the ball, but no respect to the Trailblazers, but the the standard is different here. Like if you're not giving effort, at least effort, at least effort. If you're not giving at least effort, you will not play, bro. Like you just won't play. So if I'm pretty sure he wants to play basketball. So if he wants to play basketball, he has to play defense. He don't got to be Derek White. He don't even got to be Peyton Pritchard, right? But he has a 6'10" wingspan. He's a dunk champion. He can be athletic. There's some times where I saw him crack back on the side of on the help side where he's challenging shots at the rim. Both times he got called for a foul, but just seeing a 6'2" guy actually go up and meet a bigger guy at the rim, that's the type of stuff that we want him to get accustomed to. I think he struggles with strength on both sides, so like he's not that strong. So guys can like get up under him on the offensive side of the ball, and on defense he might die on some screens. But I think the Celtics have the coaching staff, have the coach to put him in position to be successful. Yeah, we talked. George D ain't never played the game, so appreciate you, big dog. Amari Williams, my boy, 46 overall pick. I was in during the draft. I was like, okay, the Celtics might be fine with trading back further into the second round because of like those guaranteed contract shit, right? So They have had a summer of like trying to shed salary and all that stuff, and I think that was gonna come to fruition in the draft, and it did. We end up getting Amari Williams and Max Shoga. Amari has an outlier trait as a 7 footer, as a 7 foot 260 pound guy. He's a phenomenal passer. He can handle. I thought he was going to be a better rebounder coming into the league, but the big man is a super hard position to play. So I'm not really. I think he can develop into that defensively. He's just not. He's not popping athletically yet. Which I don't think he's like. I don't think he was this super athlete in college, but he was like a 3-time defensive player of the year at Drexel, and then at Kentucky. Of course, he wasn't SEC defensive player of the year, but he averaged like 1.5 blocks. So just seeing him pop more athletically. But I think the Celtics were doing him a disservice in preseason. Like if he's on the court, he needs to have the ball in his hands. I'm not saying he's scoring, but at the top of the key, on the elbow, like the same way that you use Tillman when he's doing those handoffs and stuff, like Amari can literally help you way more if you just put the ball in his hands. So if he at this point, as a rookie, if he's in the game and you don't have it in his hands, there's no reason for him to be on the court because you're suppressing his top skill. So he has to get better at the other areas of his game to be like a real rotational big, but he has an outlier skill. So you try to develop the other things because you know beyond anything, he has a skill that is borderline elite. Now we have to see it, but he is a really good passer, and he's shown he has shown flashes of that in the preseason. Shoga, he spent some time at I forgot what his first. I believe he was at Rice, his first school, but he ended his first 2 years at his final 2 years at a VCU. Is a guard that can really shoot the ball. Has shot the ball. Career 39% college shooter over 5 years. A guy. He's also more of like a combo guard too. He can handle, bring it up, can pass, can shoot, can rebound well for his size. Hasn't shown too much. Hasn't got a lot of opportunity yet. Him and Amari will most likely be in Maine for a lot of the season. So I'm excited to see what they do there. RJ Lewis, who we traded George Niang for, was basically salary cap relief. And then he was on a two-way. Sorry, he was on a 2-year two-way contract with the Jazz already when we traded for him. So there was talks about the Celtics loving him and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, let's see what he can do. He's a good perimeter defender, but Celtics end up waiving him for Ron Harper Jr. So hopefully he gets another opportunity somewhere.
Awesome. I appreciate the breakdowns on all of those guys, specifically the Anthony Simons breakdown, really going into depth on how he needs to excel, not only on the offensive end, but also on the defensive end and giving that effort. I really like that. And I also think, obviously, like you mentioned earlier, Anthony Simons being on Portland, a defensive focused team, and one that where he has to be one of those main ball handlers, main proponents of that offense, it's going to obviously have to translate coming to Boston, playing with other star players that are a little bit more effective offensively, guys like Derek White and Jaylen Brown. But I do think if he can kind of work off the ball and find those catch and shoot rhythms like you were talking about earlier, then he could be a solid volume scorer for the Celtics and could even earn himself a long-term deal here for the future. You mentioned Georges Niang. We give him the greatest thank you for being in Boston for the 2 weeks he was. Amari Williams and Max Scholga. I know Amari Williams is your guy. Max Scholga is going to be interesting to see, and I'm very excited to see how they look for the main Celtics this year. And then RJ Lewis, unfortunate for him. I think he would have been a piece that could have kind of panned out, but unfortunately, with them kind of trading for a two-way, it did make sense that he would be the one to be waived of a two-way deal if that were the case for the Boston Celtics. And then lastly here, coming into the drafted players, we already went over Amari Williams, we already went over Max Scholga, but let me know your thoughts on the first round selection in Hugo Gonzalez, as it was a very polarizing pick when he was selected. Not many people knew who he was in Celtics land, but overall from the preseason and the summer league, he has impressed.
Yeah, man. Ugo. Yeah, I didn't. He was not on my radar when we picked him. Um, there was a lot of names like Ryan Cockburn. There was Rasheed Fleming. There was guys like that who were bigger names than Ugo. But Ugo has really impressed us, man. He has really impressed us with. He had two three the other day. The shot doesn't look bad. But the shot has never looked bad. He just didn't shoot a good percentage in Real Madrid, and that wasn't the best situation for a 19-year-old anyway. He was playing with 10 former NBA guys on that team, so it was a loaded team. And when he came in, like 15 of his 88 3-point attempts were grenades. So if he only shoots 1 3 a game, and it just so happens that game he has to shoot it with 2 seconds left for somebody in his face, probably isn't going to go in. So that could take the that could change the percentage of something. But Ugo, his strengths, like the stuff that I said in my scout report of him, like he has all that stuff is translated, right? The IQ as a cutter, impeccable timing as a cutter, offensive rebounder. His first basket of a some league was a putback, so that was cool to see. And on the defense side of the ball, the intensity. I believe the Celtics overseas scout they have been watching Ugo for like 4 years before they drafted him. They compared his hustle to like they said the fans will love his Marcus Smart type hustle. And you can't say that lightly about Marcus Smart. So if you're gonna compare somebody to Smart like hustle wise, then they gotta really bring it. And Ugo has really shown that he's gonna get an offensive rebound, like chase down per game. Like he's gonna do those plays every single game. He uses the same timing he has as a cutter for his offensive rebounding. Then he is going after every chase down block. So if like you can see him every chance that there's a chase down, he's hauling ass. Like he's trying to go get that. So I like that from Ugo. The shot has been a little up and down. He shot good in some league, I believe, but in the preseason, it's been up and down. He's hit one couple of games. He struggled in another game, but he hit two. I believe he was 2 for 2 last game. If not, I know he hit two. I don't know how many attempts he had, but yeah, no, I really enjoy Ugo, and he's shown some handle stuff. um, his favorite move in the Euro leagues was the Euro step. It didn't work at an alarming rate down there, but in NBA he tried it 3 times, hasn't worked at all. He got tied up twice and he turned it over. So it was nice to see him in his last game do not do that, but do another move. He did a spin move on the a side. Oh, that was against your boy too. I ain't even peeped that. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did
it was.
got against his mom with though. But no, it was a great move, and just seeing him like being able to handle and pass the ball and stuff like that. I think we really have a nice project here with the 19-year-old.
As much as I love Mamukelashvili, Ugo Gonzalez is going to be a nice, intriguing piece for the Celtics, and I'd rather see the young prospect thrive and specifically pick apart those defenses and such like that, like you just mentioned. Unfortunately, the Eurostep hasn't been working or tailoring to his game, but he's still been effective for the Boston Celtics. I was there yesterday for the preseason game versus the Raptors, the final one, and like you mentioned, he had those 2 3-pointers. I wasn't for sure they were going in, but he looked confident when taking those shots and hit them, which got the momentum going. And I think Ugo is going to really ingratiate himself within this Celtics community with the fans and with how much he does care on the court offensively and defensively. I think him and Joe are going to bud really well with their competitiveness, and I think he just really fits that Celtic culture and identity, which is very, very keen to see, specifically with someone that may have not had the most prolific profile out there during the draft because he was playing overseas, not in college. But let's go over who the Celtics did end up losing, Nick, as even though they did make some good additions, there were some unfortunate subtractions from this team. They do lose two-way players that they did have. One of them was converted to their standard contract at the end of the year in J.D. Davison, obviously a main Celtic legend, but he goes on after this year and signs a two-way with the Houston Rockets. They also had Drew Peterson, who was on this roster. He left in free agency to go to the Charlotte Hornets. Both of these two-way players going to ex-Celtics coaches in their system, with obviously Charles Lee in Charlotte and Ime Udoka over in Houston. And then the two big names that left this offseason were Luke Kornet and Al Horford. Luke Kornet going over to San Antonio. Al Horford just recently signing with the Golden State Warriors after that Kuminga situation. Obviously, the Celtics Cornette and Horford were very vital parts for this front court and success alongside a guy in Kristaps Porzingis, and now it is going to be a glaring issue. So, what are your main takeaways with losing these four players, and what do you think they could bring for their respective team as well?
Yeah, the main takeaway was like salary cap. Brad Stevens said like the second neighborhood is why these things happen, right? Tatum's injury kind of just made it easier to like break it down. I not sure if they do all these moves if Tatum's not injured, but Tatum's injury kind of just made that that stuff happen. So with JD with the Rockets, there's an opportunity there. We hate that Fred VanVleet got hurt. He's out for the season. That was a big blow to the Rockets. But now, Reece Shepard, Aaron Holiday, and now Shady Davidson, who has been playing good in the preseason. I've heard Rockets fans really like him. So hopefully he can get a chance there and show his stuff. Is I think he the G League's all time leader scorer. So like he been balling out there for some time, and I've always like wanted Eddie to go to another team, not because he's a bad, but I just never thought he would get an opportunity here. So I'm glad that he's with the Rockets, and hopefully he gets an opportunity. Luke Cornett hurt my heart really, really bad, man. He really came along last season, man. One of the most effective players in the NBA. I think he was like, in terms of like advanced stats, he was a top 30 player in the NBA is because he rarely does the wrong thing. He's in the right position. He is a phenomenal screener, is a phenomenal passer, is a vertical spacer, and he's just so smart. Like he knows when to screen off ball. He knows what type of screen to set on ball. He knows what angle to set the screen at to get that guy open. So he just does a lot of the IQ things, and he's a really really smart player. So um, I like the trajectory of his career before he came to the Celtics was he was like a stretch big type guy. He wasn't shooting crazy percentages, so the Celtics was like, yeah, we're gonna use your size and your smarts to do this thing, and that thing has literally propelled his career, and he's peaked at his 30s. Like when people progression isn't linear at all. He's like gotten better, and he's in his 30s. He's well into his 30s right now, and just got his first actual payday. So with the Spurs, him and Vic is going to be insane. Like I seen them run a pick and roll, and they were doing some like hollow action stuff too. It's just like it's going to be crazy. So I think the Spurs are going to be going to be really fun. Of course, we're going to be looking out for Luke with the Spurs. Al Horford, he basically was like, "Yeah, I didn't think we can win a championship without Tatum." And being as old as he is, he has won, but he's still trying to win. Like he doesn't have a lot of time left, even though he's still a great defender, a great stretch big, a great passer. Al Horford knows that he doesn't have a lot of time left. So every year he's in the NBA, he wants to try to win a championship. And without Tatum, those chances go down significantly. So Horford, Draymond, Jimmy defensively is like so much IQ, so much versatility, and I think he's perfect for their system. He's going to shoot threes, he's going to screen, he's going to pass. So I think I want him to go to the Nuggets so he can back up Nikola Jokic, and then him and he can also play with Nikola. Like he's one of the more versatile bigs in the NBA, offensively and defensively. So, but the Warriors are a good fit. Even no, I hate it, but yeah. And Drew Peterson was a guy that we had last year on the 2-way. Got some time. He got a couple stints in some regular season games last year. He wasn't bad. So he was just he was just a little bit of an older rookie with less experience. So that was that. And then trades like Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday is getting older, of course. That contract was like 3 years with a player option at the end of it. So I do think that the Celtics did right by moving it just for salary cap purposes. But Drew Holiday is still a really effective player. We saw like the decline in the regular season, especially offensively, but in the playoffs, Drew is who Drew turned back to being who he's always been, right? Like the guy that will just for sure like guard a guy like Jalen Brunson. He was the best out of everybody that guarded Jalen Brunson. He held him to the lowest field goal percentage. So just having a guy that can check a Jalen Brunson and a Carl Anthony Towns in a 6'4" body will always be valuable. And the Trailblazers have will probably be one of the best defenses in the NBA with him. Tumani Kamara, the shot blocking of Don McClingan. Hopefully Rob can be healthy this year. We still love Rob. But that and they have Abdia, like they have a really good defensive team that was the best defense in the NBA since March 1st or something like that. They were really good in the second half of the season. So looking forward to that. Chris Porzingis, the Atlanta Hawks did a lot of moves. Nikhil Alexander Walker, they drafted Asa Newell, signed Luke Kennard, and they traded for Chris Stapps. This team is going to be really fun. This team's going to be really fun. I think Trae Young has a lot of play finishers. I think the Hawks have tried to lean into, hey, let's get Trae Young a secondary handler, blah, blah, blah. No, just let Trae Young have the ball in his hands. Let him be off ball some, but surround him with play finishers and defenders. And that's what they've done. I like the roster construction, but Jalen Johnson is slowly turned into somebody that you can put the ball into his hand. And not slowly turned into. Jalen Johnson is somebody that you can put the ball into his hands and he can make plays for himself and others. I think he was averaging like 20, 10, and 5 before he got hurt last season. And just seeing his ascension from a guy coming out of Duke who like had some questions in college. He didn't really play that much. Um, he's been a great story. He's been a great story. So I like Atlanta. Penda, I did like Noah Penda coming into the draft. I think he's been solid with Orlando. Of course, his swing skill is shooting the ball, even though he was pretty solid down there before coming to the NBA. I think he's a really good defender. Not really good. I think he's a good defender with the chance of being a really good defender. Like steals, blocks, very disruptive. But he fits the Orlando Magic culture, like switchable, tall, long defender. So that's cool.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thank you for diving in for all of that, for all the moves that happened for the Celtics this offseason. I would agree with you on basically everything. I even know that Noah Penda, someone we just talked about, was someone that you had been mentioning for the Celtics to maybe look at during the draft. I know some other people had him around that big board. So that one thing that happened during that draft that was a little maybe shocking was trading out of that high pick. But obviously, like you hit earlier, the main point of the Celtics was to shed salary. So being able to move off that contract, shedding and getting some cheaper contracts in Amari Williams, Max Shulga, more two-way contracts than getting a guaranteed guy definitely helped the flexibility of this Celtics offseason. It is going to be tough to see guys like Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis go, but I do wish the best of luck for them in their career. Holiday, I think, is going to be a really solid disruptor and key vital part for their defense that you mentioned was very solid in the second half of the year, plugging him in with Tumani Kamara. And I think having him as a mentor for Scoot Henderson is going to be absolutely fantastic. And then adding some great rim protection, three-point shooting, and not a lob threat, but someone who maybe can throw the ball up to and can at least put the ball in the basket. Kristaps Porzingis is going to be a very solid running mate for the Hawks and Trae Young, in my personal opinion. And I really, really like what they did this off season. So, with that being said, Nick, we get into our last category here before we go over the depth chart and our prediction for the Boston Celtics this year. Let's dive. Alrighty, so with the overseas, unsigned, and waived Celtics here, this category is a little jumbled, but it is what we want to discuss next. Unfortunately for these players, they either, like I just said, unsigned, overseas, or waived. Torrey Craig was with the Celtics team. He is unsigned at this very moment, brought in as a veteran minimum buyout candidate last year after being waived by the Bulls. Miles Norris was on a two-way contract with the Celtics team. He unfortunately had to be waived for obviously the RJ Lewis acquisition of him being that third two-way. Miles Norris was a late two-way addition for the Boston Celtics last year after they had waived their second-round pick Anton Watson. Miles Norris went over to Barcelona to go play overseas. And then lastly, who just got waived, RJ Lewis, as Nick and I have discussed, due to the fact that Rod Harper Jr. is now into play. Nick, any kind of takeaways from these three?
Yeah, Torrey Craig. I actually liked what Torrey Craig brought last year. Just a veteran guy who was more athletic than I thought he was when he came to the Celtics. Guy like just like a 3-and-D guy that could switch guard most positions and be physical. So I was cool with that. I wouldn't have minded the Celtics bringing him back on like a 1 year type thing. Miles Norris was a big wing shooter. Not a really good defender, but he was a guy that was athletic enough to like block shots and like help position. But yeah, the Celtics ultimately chose tonight, not keep him around. RJ Lewis was the most surprising like wave because the Celtics. I thought I was told that the Celtics like loved him type, and the Brad Stevens was at his game in a tournament in the NCAA tournament last year when he was with St. John's, Big East Player of the Year. I thought um his NBA skill was perimeter defense and athleticism. The other parts of his game were going to have to be worked on quite a bit, but yeah. So that's what it is.
Yeah, I agree with you on the Torrey Craig part. I thought he was pretty solid as a wing buyout player to bring in for the Celtics, and had been someone I had kept my eye on as a trade target for the team, looking for those possible targets for those last 2 seasons. And when he's had that video of him with Jason Tatum, where he was in the Celtics facility, Jason Tatum was rehabbing. We had that quick little snippet. I thought that was an inkling that maybe he was coming back. Unfortunately, that's not the case at this moment. We'll have to wait and see what that foretells for Craig, possibly with the Celtics or with another team in the future. But Nick, let's dive into this depth chart here. Now, you did preface in the beginning that you didn't think Chris Boucher was going to be starting at center, but we've seen two main Celtics starting lineups that they have run with these last 2 preseason games. As Peyton Pritchard said, they will be running those kind of lineups. One of them the night before or 2 nights ago, had this starting lineup that I have: Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Sam Hauser, and Chris Boucher. Last night, the Celtics versus the Raptors ran something a little bit different, in taking out Sam Hauser of the lineup as he did not participate, and moving Namish Keita into the starting lineup alongside Chris Boucher. So my first question for you, Nick, before you kind of dive in and break down this depth chart here, is what starting lineup would you rather see? Boucher at the 4 and Namish Keita at the 5, or this one pictured here? And then kind of give your thoughts.
I have been going Pritchard, Derek, Jalen, Boucher, and Kata, just because I think the Celtics have always like wanted, like especially this year with like Joe Mazzulla talking about playing to the strengths of the roster. Like they have, they're really talking about upping the pace of the team, which has happened through 4 preseason games. But that's not just on the offensive side. That's on the defensive side. They're being way more aggressive on the defensive side. They're focusing on like defensive playmaking. They're helping really aggressively. They're stunting really aggressively. And I think Chris Boucher gives them that more than Hauser. Now that doesn't I think Hauser will play more minutes than Chris Boucher. And like on like the season averages front, but I think Boucher gives them, like, they desperately need size, like desperately. I think Chris Boucher, his size being 6'9", he can help on the rebounds a little bit more than Sam Hauser can. Um, I just think they really need that guy that can like help, that can be that can be help side, provide some help side rim protection, that can be a rangy athlete in the help positions, which the Celtics have like shown us in the preseason that they are helping aggressively. Is 5 men versus the ball, and I think that's a really good scheme for them. So I will go Chris Boucher, but I won't be surprised if it's M Hauser. Like Joe trusts him more than Chris Boucher, and I have no problem with M Hauser. I think he's a much better defender than he's given credit for, and he's a guy that has shot 40% his whole career from three. So I have literally no, if they start Sam Hauser, you won't get anything out of me. Like he's good there. Um, I would say that he would guard the threes on the other side. Like whoever the stronger or like better wing is, Jaylen Brown would guard that guy. So Sam will be playing the 3 on defense, but playing the 4 on offense. So it's just it's just really like what the guy's role is going to be. But yeah, I would go Chris Boucher at the 4. But Joe Mazzulla also said like they won't have like a set rotation like the entire year, and that's interesting. But when you look at this team, their strength is they have a lot of guys that can do different things, and they have a lot of guys. So, and he has to find out which of these guys can do certain things consistently, right? So when he says like, okay, we're probably not gonna have a set rotation for the majority of this season, besides Pritchard, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, and Sam Hauser, all these other guys have to prove that they can play here consistently. So all those other like 12 to 13 guys, he's gonna be like rotating them in to see what they can do. Now, Josh Minot has shown the most in preseason. Certainly, we're encouraged by the rookie Hugo Gonzalez. Garza has done himself well. Simons has had a cool game, but he wasn't good last game. But yeah, I will go with the Pritchard, Derek White, Jalen Brown, Chris Boucher, Kata lineup to start, especially if Joel Embiid plays. But I do think Joe will be more like matchup dependent in his starting five than any other season.
I like that you mentioned the matchup dependent stuff because that's been one of the main takeaways from this Celtics training camp and preseason and all of this stuff, at least from what I've been seeing from some of the beat reporters, is that they're going to have this flexibility and, like you said, not having this starting lineup. And I like how you also mentioned, obviously, that if Jalen and Sam do play together, that obviously the lineup does look like this now, but Sam will definitely be playing defense on the threes, and Jalen will be playing it on the stronger, physical, more four bigger wings because that's just how the Celtics will look. And maybe for some people reading this, they might get a little bit confused with that. Obviously, you and I have been big believers of Sam Hauser. You mentioned his defense, how people kind of disrespect him a little bit on that side of the ball. Maybe don't give him as much credit as he deserves, which I think is a very big key for how he's going to really fit into the Celtics team. As last year he dealt with some injuries, and I do think that's what severely limited his shooting ability for the Celtics, having another solid career year shooting 3 pointers. So I'm excited to see what he can look like back for this team here. Like you mentioned, Josh Minot, Ugo Gonzalez have looked pretty solid in the summer league so far. Jordan Walsh hasn't really gotten much burn, but we are still very high on him. My last question for you with the depth chart here is just talking about two guys who we haven't really mentioned, and that's Baylor Shireman and Xavier Tillman. I know Shireman has had some concourse around his name over these last couple games. Xavier Tillman as well just had the buzzer beater versus the Raptors to win the game and is looking a lot sharper as he had been dealing with a knee injury last season. So what are your main takeaways on those two guys?
Yeah, Shaman, it's tough because like I've seen Shaman play well against actual NBA guys in actual NBA minutes, like in the regular season. Like last year to end the regular season, Shaman was like really good. You know what I'm saying? He started the season off in summer league. He started off not shooting well, but you could see that he was a great passer. He was a good rebounder. He was somebody that was gonna play his heart out for the Celtics. He had like a I was there last summer league, and he had a play where he like dove into the stands to get a loose ball, and I was just like, okay, he's a Celtic. You know what I'm saying? That's cool. So, and then he started slow at the beginning of the season. You could clearly see that he wasn't ready yet. You know what I'm saying? And then he was even struggling in the G League to start last season. But then you saw as time went on, he got more comfortable. He started putting up good numbers and shooting good in the G League, and then he came into the Celtics roster when we had like a couple of injuries, and you saw in like those garbage times, like okay, he's not a garbage time player, like he's beating these guys, you know what I'm saying? And then he had that big, he had a game against the 76ers, where I thought was his first like actual good game. And then the Brooklyn Nets game where he shot like 8 for 9, and he had like 20 points was where it was like, okay, this guy can this guy could probably actually be a rotational player. So it's kind of tough when you see that against real teams, and then he comes out in the summer league again, doesn't shoot well, he passes great, he rebounds great, he looks better defensively. I think Shaman had a really underrated defensive season as a rookie. As far as just like my expectations, like I didn't think he was going to be anything defensively, but he was a really solid defensive playmaker. He was he was a good, not good. He was an average on ball defender, and I thought he was going to be bad. But defensive playmaking and like getting steals and deflections, he was actually good there. And he said that he worked on that during the offseason. And him, Peyton Pritchard, and Anthony Simon said that they worked on defensive uh playmaking. So our guards being able to do that will like aid our faster pace. You know what I'm saying? So and then Shaman, this preseason has been like awful, kind of just to say it like that. He's been awful, and I think Joe Mazzulla in the first Raptors game where we blew a huge lead. You know what I'm saying? We had a lot of turnovers at the end of the game. I think we had 29 turnovers in that game, but of course a lot of them were like without Derek on the court, without Pritchard. You know what I'm saying? And we did have Jalen that game. But I felt that Joe Mazzulla challenged Baylor Shaman, even though we know he's not this, and this probably isn't fair. But Shaman is like a secondary ball handler guy who can make plays, attack closeouts, can pass the ball, has some real flair to his game. But in the first Raptors game, he kept him out there with the the RJ Lewis's, the Ron Harper guys, and he forced Shaman to be the primary handler. And I think Shaman didn't handle that well. He turned the ball over a ton, and then there were some times where he was deferring to other guys to go handle. And there was a time where he told Ron Harper Jr. to go get the ball to like bring it up the court, and then Ron Harper turned it over. And Joe, instead of looking at Harper, he looked at Shaman and was like, "That's supposed to be you. Like you need to go handle that." So Joe has given Shaman responsibility this preseason. He hasn't handled it well. He just hasn't been shooting well. We just waived Jalen Bridges, Kendall Brown, and Wendell Moore. So um,
That's
that's
very
that.
interesting as well. Guys that are most likely going to be going to that main Celtics team. Kind of just a quick snippet while that's kind of being said. I know Jalen Bridges a little bit more due to the fact that he played for the Valley Suns last year, was on two-way there. We
Yeah,
also know, I believe, Kendall Brown played for the Pacers in Milwaukee, if I'm not mistaken. And I know that Wendell Moore had played for the Timberwolves and the Pistons, with him being a former first round pick. What really intrigues you with them for guys in the main system?
yeah. I like Jalen Bridges. He's a 3-and-D guy. I liked what he did in the summer league. Kendall Brown is a really athletic guy. I think he played the best out of all these guys in a summer league because he was really efficient. He cut well. He finished well, and he showed that he can hit some shots. So I think that was good for Kendall Brown. Uh, Wendell Moore didn't play in this summer league, but he's played some minutes with the Timberwolves last season or 2 seasons ago, I believe. But he's a good perimeter defender. Didn't play well in preseason, but he had that huge poster at the end of the game. So just seeing somebody that can do something like that was pretty cool. But in Maine, I expect a lot of I yeah, in Maine, I expect a lot of like Max Shoga. I want the offense to be ran through Amari just to show that he has the like hub translatable skill to the NBA. I thought Ugo was gonna be down there live, but he kind of you don't know he might be with the Celtics, man. So I don't know. We'll see. But I do like what we got going down in Maine.
Yeah, the trend of the Celtics rookie playing down with Maine for a majority of the season has been seemingly a precedent these last 2 years with Jordan Walsh and Baylor Sharman. Baylor Sharman just not really getting much run with the Boston Celtics instead of really going down. But like you mentioned, Ugo's kind of impressed on both sides, and just I think vocally as well to Joe that he could still stay on this team and maybe actually get some burn, which would be a little bit different to what we have seen in the past. And then obviously those three guys on those Exhibit 10s that just got waived are going to be exciting to see for the main Celtics. But like you mentioned, I'd rather see players like Amari Williams, Max Shulga, those two ways that the Celtics did invest draft capital in to kind of be those focal points either on the offensive end or the defensive end. And I'm very confident. I know you are like Amari Williams, I do as well from Kentucky, but I'm excited to see what Max Shulga can do specifically as a point guard because he looked pretty solid in the preseason doing that, or excuse me, the summer league doing that for the Boston Celtics. And without JD Davison, no really ball handler on that team, I think he could fill in a solid role there. So Nick, with all that being said, we went over the depth chart, we went over who lost, who is still on the Celtics team, who got added. Let's look at the prediction here. Now, there may be some bias in this, I won't lie, but I have the Boston Celtics finishing sixth here in the Eastern Conference. I feel like this is kind of the perfect spot for them. I do think they're better than a non-play-in team. I don't think that Joe Mazzulla, regardless of how this roster does look, is going to want to tank. I think they're always going to be aggressive in trying to pull out games. Jaylen Brown has a lot to prove of being that number one star on this team. Derek White has a lot to prove of being a number two co-star. These guys aren't just going to take a relax break because Tatum is out for either the full season or a majority of the season. They want to still be relevant. I do have them above the Bucks and Pacers. I feel like these three teams can kind of all be interchangeable depending on who you ask. Obviously, the Pacers also dealing with an injury to their superstar and Tyrese Halliburton, but the Bucks, even though Giannis is dominant, they have a good front court, which could very be a good case versus the Celtics in some games. I do think their guard room is a little bit weak. I don't know about their wing rotation, and I just feel a little bit more confident within Jaylen Brown, Derek White. I feel like guys like Peyton Pritchard are going to step it up. Anthony Simons is going to find a way to get his rhythm going, and Joe Mazzulla, has been widely regarded as a top tier head coach. Maybe some Celtics fans don't want to admit that, but he has been recognized outside from other franchises that he is a good head coach. And I'm excited to see if he can put that point proven as well, dealing with a little bit of a weekend roster. So, what is your takeaways, Nick? Where would you have the Boston Celtics? Do you think this is fair? Do you think it's a little high, a little low? What are your takes?
First look, I think it's a little high, but I haven't like done a prediction for the Celtics like season yet. It's just
No worries.
I don't know. Like I don't know. Like because I think a big thing, of course, injuries happen, right? And I think with the previous teams, we were able to sustain injuries. Like if Jalen Brown were to go out, knock on wood, if Jason Tatum were, I ain't about to say that part. But if like Kristaps was out, if Derek was out, we had the team. Like we was 12 deep with guys that could come in and contribute. Now I'm not saying this team isn't that, but those guys were proven, right? In games where we didn't have guys, we were still crushing playoff teams with guys out. So I think if a guy goes out this year, like if Derek White, Jalen Brown go out this year, we're probably not going to win games. So that's that. And also like just being on roster, the East is weak, but it's like there's so much range with the East. The Cavs and the Knicks and Orlando, I'm comfortable putting at the like top three. And then the Celtics, the Pacers, like they don't have their top players. We don't know what they're gonna do. The Pacers also lost Miles Turner, which is a big loss. I do like A Huff. I do like Isaiah Jackson come back from his Achilles injury. James Wiseman coming back from his Achilles injuries. But you don't know what the Celtics and Pacers like. They're gonna probably try to be competitive, which because they're competitive franchises, but you never know. The Bucks have Giannis Antetokounmpo. They signed Miles Turner, of course. I think Ryan Rollins is better than what people think. Kyle Kuzma is not, but I think like it's just they have the best player on the like if they were in a playoff series with any team in the Eastern Conference, they have the best player on the floor in every series. So you get a chance there. And then the team is and they just signed AJ Green to a 4 year, $45 million contract. I think that's okay for him. But yeah, the Bucks can be easily higher, or the surrounding pieces of Giannis just can be not good, and then they're here. So the Hornets, I do like the Hornets. Nine, I think they'll be in the playing range, like the 9 to 11 spot, because they made some good additions this year. I think Lamelo Ball being healthy is the biggest thing. I really like him. Of course, he's not the most calm player. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes he's going to make wild decisions, but I think he's one of the best passers in this league. He's one of the most exciting players in this league. And he's a 6'7" guard with quick twitch, has handle, and has a 3-point rate out the roof. And he can make plays for other people. I think that's very valuable, and I think that's rare. You know what I'm saying? So they also added Colin Sexton for use of Nurkic. They don't have a true center. I like Musa Diabate. Uh, he's a phenomenal rebounder, hustle guy, can do whatever they want, can do whatever he needs them to do. Has some cool touch around the rim I've seen, but they just don't have a real. Oh, they drafted Kalkbrenner, who I do like. So he had some starts in preseason. So they're gonna do a little bit of a center by committee thing also with Plum Dog there. So yeah, they drafted Con Knipple, Sion James, who I like, who's can be like a utility guy, just like he was at Duke. Brandon Miller coming back healthy. Like they didn't have their top two players for majority of the season last season. So then you add guys in. So I think they're gonna be solid. 76ers is like the biggest range out of anybody. If I think we just got a notification that Paul George isn't going to be ready for the start of the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but if Joel's healthy, like I think, and then Jerry McCain's out for some time now already. So they just injury bug has hit them quite hard in the last 2 years, but they have incentive to be good. At least more incentive than they had last year. Their pick last year ended up at 3. They ended up getting PJ Edgecombe, who I love. But their pick last year was top 6 protected. I believe this year it's only top 3 protected. So you have to be better. Or either you have to be better or you have to be worse than you were last season. So if you're gonna bottom out, you got to do it quick. But I think 3 is just like a really, really slim chance to keep your pick. So And I don't want OKC getting pick 4, especially not next year's draft. That's shit gonna be crazy. So just try to be good. Embiid needs to be healthy. We saw him out practicing some in those scrimmages, but I love VJ Edgecombe. Kelly Oubre played really hard for them last year. Um, Justin Edwards is a cool undrafted guy. You know, Quentin Grimes came back. Well, I don't know if that was he wanted to come back, but he got that qualifying offer. He didn't get the money he wanted. But Jared McCain, Tyrese Maxey, BJ Edgecombe, Joel Embiid is the huge thing. Like he has to do something. I love Bona also. I think he's an athletic freak. He's probably the best backup that Joel Embiid's had. No disrespect to Drummond, but um yeah, so the Heat are the Heat. I don't really know what they're gonna do. I do like care where I like Agachons, of course. I like Bam. They made a cool move to get Norman Powell. So I think that was good. I like Xavion. I think the defense side is where they're gonna hang their hat on, especially without Tyler Hero for the beginning of the season. So I don't know. The Raptors are just they have the same players over and over again. Like but it's such a Raptors team, a team full of guys that have wingspan that can switch, that pressure the ball. I like the Brandon Ingram stuff, but they like paid him before he even played a game. So like Scotty it's cool. I love CMB, but it's like he's literally like he can't shoot. He's 6'8", but he does everything else well, and it's like half of the Raptors' wings. So like I don't know, but we'll see. We'll see. I do think they have talent, but they don't have shooting, and they can't shoot with Brandon Ingram, who's a mid range guy. Scotty Barnes, who's not a great shooter. RJ Barrett prefers to drive. He can shoot a little bit though, and then quickly who can shoot, but then all those guys are making $30 million. Like quickly hasn't shown that he should be making $32 yet. RJ Barrett got like 28. Whatever. It's just it's a weird team. They could work out or they can't. The Wizards, the Nets, yes, the Bulls being 14 surprises me. Now I want the Bulls to be 14 because I think for a lot of the past years they've just been in the play-in or around the play-in for no reason at all. I think they should have been 14 the past couple of years, but they traded Lonzo for Okoro. I think Josh Giddey just got paid. I think he's a cool player. Um, I love Miles Buzelis. I love Miles Buzelis. I think he can be really good for them. But they have the same team, basically, except for Lonzo, and they drafted a Noah Esenge. And I think that they'll always be around that 10-11 spot. So it's just this whole screenshot of 6 to like 12 like is gonna be so interesting. It's gonna be so interesting this year. So
No, I agree, and especially with the Eastern Conference, like you mentioned, the two top teams that made the NBA Finals from this respective conference without their best player, it's going to be a little bit of a toss-up with teams still being young. We got the older teams. I will say for the Bulls, the reason they are so low is because I do think they eventually will sell by the deadline, and I'm hoping that they eventually kind of bottom out, which is going to be the key. But I do agree with a lot of the sentiments that you brought here within some of these teams here, specifically the Raptors one, as once again, I saw that yesterday kind of take place. And my main takeaway for the Raptors is just that they don't have enough scoring and spacing within that unit with those three wings to be successful. I just see it being a little bit of a clog, a little bit of a mess. And I'm glad I'm not the only one that can kind of see that transpiring over in Toronto. But Nick, we went over the Boston Celtics today, which was an absolute fantastic time to go over their additions, who they brought in, who they additionally lost, and going over our predictions for the team as well. Before we do sign off, I'd love to give you the opportunity to plug where the people can find you so they can get your great analysis because you absolutely nailed it out of the park with today's episode, man.
thank you, brother. Appreciate you. YouTube, Nick NBA, Twitter, Nick NBA YT, which also stands for YouTube. Catch me on Celtics blog. The link, if you go to my YouTube and all of my recent videos, the link will be in the description. So catch some of that. And yeah, man, appreciate you for bringing me on. Too long of a time in between talks, brother. So I'm gonna tap back in with you.
Yeah, for sure. We definitely, like you said, it's been way too long since we've had a discussion about basketball in general. Meanwhile, with the Celtics, so we definitely got to get on this more, especially with me picking up Swish City. We've already had you on as a guest before. We'll definitely be having you on for some more talks. And once again, always a blast to discuss Celtics with you. And for you, everyone, once again, check out Nick's stuff. Not only does he do Celtics stuff, but also on his YouTube, he does break down other players and going over film. So if you just want to lay back, take your shoes off, and listen to someone ramble about some breakdowns, this is the guy for you. Give you that great insight not only on plays but also in depth on these players as well. So once again, thank you to Nick for hopping on today. It was an absolute blast. I hope you guys enjoyed this jam-packed episode here on Switch City. Make sure to continue to hit the like and subscribe button so you can stay tuned on everything revolving around the NBA. As like I said, we'll definitely be having some more guests and Nick back on this channel once again. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to today's episode. Have a great rest of your day and peace out.